Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Miller. I'm Senior Vice President of Content Strategy and Production for Marquee Brands. We have many fun brands, including Martha Stewart, Emerald Lagasse, Sur La Table, Motherhood Maternity, BCBG, just to name a few. And I've been very happy to meet some wonderful people with brand storytelling. And we thought it might be a good opportunity to do a series right now as the world is kind of opening up again to look at what is the next normal. We all remember the days when we weren't even sure we were going to be able to be in production and what it would look like. And as usual, the production community and everybody that is creative and strategic has figured out amazing ways to adapt. And now, as we're looking at the future, what's next? So it will be a three-part series. Today is on production specifically, how we're going to adapt to production. And one thing for me is right out of the gate, our Martha's agent at CAA said, okay, let's hold off a bit because we had a few shows that were on the market that definitely needed everybody live and in person. But when we saw how much love she was getting on social media, I said, let's not wait. And so we took one of her books, The Martha Manual. Everybody was kind of trying to figure out how to live new. And we created Martha Knows Best that got bought by HGTV. And we produced it with 2 cell phone cameras in very hot weather in the sun with hardly any support staff. And it almost killed me. And now it's in its 3rd season and we've upgraded a little bit, but it definitely changed also perspective on budgets for the network and what their perception was and things like that. So it was a good thing and hopefully it continues that way. So I'd like to meet our esteemed panel today. Why don't we start with Victoria?
Hey everyone, Victoria Lavilla. I'm the Vice President of Production and Development at Morgan Stanley. What else would you like to know about me other than I've been there at the firm for about 6 years. We do a whole bunch of video for our clients globally.
Has your production changed a lot during COVID? Had you adapted in certain ways?
Yes, like it was interesting to remember that point in time, like when you said we didn't know if we were doing production because we got shut down. we were told to stop doing video because trying to push content through our environment was too much. We had to make sure that the company could first work in the fashion we were all remote, and then it was slowly we were able to start doing some testing to see how our video would perform. So there was a couple months where we were, trying to figure it all out, but it's been a lot of remote filming. We started to pick up production about 4 months ago. And then I've had a couple series get greenlit and we've been doing that for the past 4 months. And we have some new production in development. So we're seeing signs of life.
Did the tone of the production change based on, some of the adaptations you had to make? And how has the consumer reacted to those changes?
Can't say that the tone changed as much. I mean, we do a lot of thought leadership. We do a lot of market commentary. So the folks that we work with, that stayed consistent. I don't think the tone has changed. I think people's appetite for quality kind of went away. We're always looking to make the prettiest products and the most nice looking products that we can, but that just didn't matter. It was the message and the time of our messaging became critical. So it was just adapting to how do we make recorded Zoom video look a little bit better? Where is all of our B-roll? Like a lot of deficiencies that we have came to light and we're solving for that now. So it was really more of focusing on how do we just get things made. And now what we're seeing is now the products that we're actually filming in person, everybody keeps talking about that. Like now there's this desire to come back to a look that's not Zoom. Like no one can really tolerate it, but so it's been a transition.
And then Tom, what about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself. What were the early days like and how do you think it affected your overall content?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Kim. So I'm with Walgreens Boots Alliance, manager of creative content development. And it's kind of interesting because my first day was November of 2019. And so our team really, and I actually started on the Walgreens side and then transferred over to the Walgreens Boots Alliance side in February 2020 when we built our storytelling team. So we are in a position where we really didn't know a world before COVID in terms of what we did. I think there was like 2 or 3 video projects that we had worked on. We have an internal team that has like a small studio and some video production capabilities. We lean on them for a lot of the physical production needs, and then we also work with vendors. I like to work with independent filmmakers to create some of our brand films. And we had just wrapped up a large project at our downtown Chicago office where I engaged with an independent filmmaker to create a big, beautiful brand film about our new office that was opening. And that was March 10th, 2020. And then, I mean, honestly, we could have released that video probably 2 days earlier and it would have been fine, but we've actually had to hold on it now for about a year because you can't really release a video encouraging people to come check out your new office. And so it was really interesting because we were just building up our capabilities and just building up our team. And so, you talked about it, Victoria, like trying to make Zoom video look good. That was kind of all we had at the time. So we actually kind of made hay with it a little bit because we were trying to find our footing. We were trying to figure out how we, as a small, because we're a very small, it's funny to say it, this, the large corporation of Walgreens Boots Alliance, but we're a small kind of scrappy startup type team within the comms organization. And so we were always all about maximizing your budget, maximizing your talent, maximizing your capabilities. So now that we can engage with our global team and I think a good example of a kind of quick and dirty and easy content piece that we were able to put out is we had a panel in June that was with our LGBT plus business resource group. And they were just doing a video panel over Zoom, and it was really easy for us to record that over Zoom and actually turn that into a nice little kind of 2-minute highlight reel video for external. So I really found myself leaning back more on my post-production skills and capabilities and experience, much more than physical production. And we still have physical production teams going out there, but they had been doing that for years, and so they had these built-in processes and used all the COVID regulations and protocols and all that to continue doing their physical production. But we really leaned into the post-production and just engaging our teams in Latin America, in UK, a lot of, I'll call it user-generated content, but it's content generated by our team members, different district managers and folks in different offices throughout, and just saying, hey, if you're doing something, get out your phone, take a video, send us the video, we'll do something with it. Sometimes we can't, sometimes we can, but some really fun content pieces came out of just, we had a guy that worked for Boots. He actually was, prior to the pandemic, he was an airline pilot. And the airline actually closed a couple months into the pandemic. And so he needed to pivot, and he actually took a job doing delivery driving for prescriptions for Boots. And he just filmed a bunch of like funny little like rough choppy selfie videos of like, oh, this is me, this is my day. And he was like acting like a pilot, even though he's in the, the delivery van of a Boots. But we put that together and we chopped it together into a fun little digestible external piece of content. So it's funny because I look at the next normal as like what it's always been, because it really informed how we go about things and how we produce things. And in a way, I mean, it might be a unique kind of perspective in this because it's made things a lot easier for us. I think going forward, now we're going to have to look at as the world opens up, as budgets open up, we'll start kind of building our physical production infrastructure. But for now, it's been, we kind of just slid right into it, and it really became our way of working, and our normal way of working as we built a team kind of during 2020. So
one of the things you said I saw true with our BCBG brand, everything was always pre-COVID, very beautiful, everything very stylized and perfect in the way it was presented as far as the clothing. And COVID for that brand opened up, posts on baking and posts on just getting through the day and quotes and things that just were, I think, opened up a conversation with their consumer that was much more genuine and human. And the beautiful clothes, all of that is still real. It doesn't go away, but it put another layer to the relationship. Did anyone else experience that kind of transition?
Well, I'll tag on to that a little bit, which is I feel like it created us as editors and content creators. It gave us a little bit more room for error in a way too, because now when you're watching CNN and you see somebody on video conference and it'll glitch out or it'll chop out a little bit, people are used to things looking like that. And so as an editor, if you don't have perfect video footage, people are already kind of desensitized to that and used to how something can sort of look. And so it can really expand your options in terms of editing and presenting footage. And it really, there's kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little bit endearing, right? To have something that looks a little bit more homemade and homegrown. And it makes you more relatable as a brand to have stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I like that. Mark, please introduce yourself and tell us your thoughts on the last year.
Mark Lapidus. I work for Brand USA, which is the tourist bureau, essentially, of the United States of America. So we make content about our great country, and we show it to the rest of the world. We created a over-the-top television network a couple of years ago called Go USA TV. It's on half a dozen platforms, I guess, now. And the challenge for us has been really kind of building up the biggest library that we can have. I think we're up to about 130 hours of content. And in order to grow distribution, I don't know if any of you are in the OTT world, but they're looking for between 200 and 500 hours. I mean, it's quite a bit of programming when you start thinking about the length of, especially these days, a lot of videos being 12 minutes. A lot of the series we do are only that long, 12-minute episodes, maybe 5 in a series. We have made a bunch of movies. That helps. This past year, just like you guys, production stopped for us. And so what I've actually been doing I've been watching a lot of shows, but they're all old. Like I'm trying to license more material for the network, whether we can either license it for money or whether we're a nonprofit. So often people actually just donate films and TV shows to us for the exposure around the world. The thing that we did do, just like the rest of you that I've heard so far, is we had to do virtual conferences for the international travel industry. And so we did an awful lot of in-house video. And if you're going to do any more of it, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this product or not, but there's a product that we stumbled on called Riverside. And what it does is actually very fascinating, and you might find a use for it in future production. The way that it works is, first of all, you get complete camera isolation when you're doing like a 5-box like this. So unlike Zoom, you're not having to just grab the individual squares if you don't want to. It actually breaks it down into individual camera shots. But even more importantly than that, because there are a number of platforms that do that, this is something I haven't seen anywhere else. What it does is it actually downloads the video to the user's browser. And so while you get to watch the performance on a stream, you're actually waiting till the end until the download goes to the browser off the local camera, and then it sends you the download. So as you can imagine, what happens is that instead of getting a video feed that has all this noise in it from streaming, all you're getting is the video feed that actually is coming off their camera to their actual laptop. Which I can't even begin to tell you what the difference in quality is. I mean, it does not look like Zoom or meetings or anything else. A friend of mine stumbled on, it's a small company based in Israel. It started as a podcast company. And then they realized that a lot of podcasters these days are using video kind of secondarily, but I think they've opened up a whole new market now with broadcast TV stations. So if you're going to do any of that kind of work, and it's not that expensive either, I have to say, you get so many hours a month of use, and it does have some limitations, although it now does work on iPhone as well. Works through a Chrome browser, and it's very, very intuitive, easy to use. It doesn't really require much. Anyway, that aside, that's not what we came. Yeah, I thought it might help you.
We're doing a lot of video. We're doing a lot of events.
Oh my God! You will once you use this thing, you will never go back to Zoom or any other.
Probably not.
You never will, because even just having the cameras isolated with the audio isolated itself is just such a joy when you go into editing. So you don't have to deal with, and then you can even you can control like how you then edit the screens. Like you might just want 2 people on at once. If they're the only 2 in the conversation, you can take one in and out. I mean, any of the kind of typical editing you would do in a multi-camera setup, you can do through Riverside. So,
Yeah,
and then the audio is the same thing. You're not getting that streaming audio. You're getting audio downloaded to a browser.
That's amazing.
But they should give me a commission, right?
I was gonna say, and this is not, I am not associated with this product. How did people consume your travel content when the world was closed down? Did you find it more attractive? Did you find it dipped? Was there a change?
It actually, for a while, it went up, and then I saw a dip about 2 months ago, and now it's on the way back up again, especially in Europe and India. I guess there's this well-known, and you can feel it yourselves, there's this pent-up demand for travel. The primary work we do is international. So even though we do help destinations domestically in some ways, where our mission really is not that. Our mission is to actually kind of get international tourists interested in coming here. And so that's why we created a travel entertainment network. It's not really, some of them are like travel documentaries, but a lot of them are more just kind of fun stories about things that happen in the United States. We look for content that has a sense of place, preferably with a plot, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a typical travel video. So the numbers I think are as we look at opening with Canada and Mexico probably being first, I think we'll see a surge in those areas. There are two sides to this. I talked about the industrial side first, which is really kind of more for the brand side of just dealing with the travel industry. But most of our work year round is on the consumer side, the other side of this, where we're just trying to get ordinary people to watch TV to try to get them interested in coming here.
Cool. And Michelle, we haven't talked to you yet. How are you? Thanks for joining us today.
I'm on mute a lot because, of course, my apartment is under construction. So I think that is also, you think about the content over the last couple of years, and the guy who was on the news and his 18-month-old waddled in, and the I'm not a cat guy who did a depo as a cat. This is all normal. This is literally I think like the exposure and the vulnerability to people as real people has really changed like how you storytell, frankly.
Yeah.
It's not like the beautiful, perfect green screen. It's not, the beautiful, perfect set. It's like, let's just be real. Let's just tell it. What is it that you're what objective are you trying to achieve? Where is this content going to live? So I would say that at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, Tom is already a partner. So now the objective is to get all the rest of you as a partner as well. Really has been to repurpose and redesign, because of course, the objective at LLS is to cure blood cancer, and be that support system for patients with blood cancer. And the number one mechanism for doing that has always traditionally been our in-person events. So team and training, which I had already pressured earlier, Tom, to join the team, the Walgreens team there. No pressure, Tom. And Light the Night, which happens in the fall, Big Climb, which just happened last week, Man of the Year, Woman of the Year, Student of the Year, all those are events. So we had to completely reimagine not only the fundraising aspect of it, but the content thread and that content user experience for constituents and for donors. The other piece of it was, what's the redistribution strategy? So once you have a video, what do we do with it? So it's like, how do we give ourselves permission to not only tell a blood cancer story on LLS.org, but if it involves somebody who's been in the Super Bowl twice, why can't I tell that story through traditional football content mechanisms? And you like that? What are the and then in thinking that when you are producing content, what is the strategy even before you start rolling tape on the video and content derivatives that you're going to need for all those other platforms? Like one might be a little bit more football-y, one might be a little bit more cancer-y. So really taking a look and reassessing what's the why, but what's the so what? Like if you have blood cancer, why do I care about this video? Or if you've already done 6 team and training marathons across the country, like why do I need to do a 7th one? So I think keeping all of that in mind is great learnings for from tomorrow onwards, regardless of vaccinations and production protocol on set.
Is there anything in particular that you learned by adapting to not having the events live that actually you think is a valuable tool moving forward that may not have ever come to fruition if you weren't put into this situation?
Yeah, it goes back to the lens of identification and storytelling. So normally I would join a Light the Night that was based here in Manhattan. You know, I live on the Upper East Side. So is it the one in Bryant Park? Is it the one in Brooklyn? Whatever. But with everything going virtual, I could join my family's Light the Night in Michigan, you know, where I grew up, or I could join the one in Boston with other Boston College graduates or whatever. Like, it didn't necessarily, like, the physical location didn't matter. It was more what kind of group you identified with. So how do we kind of use that going forward?
Yeah, very, very interesting. Anybody else have anything that was kind of an aha that happened as a result of necessity that now you would consciously use moving forward because it worked so well?
Well, I got to say that having B-roll and imagery really helped us during times, you know, for production for things that we did have to make. You know, so I mean, having a digital asset management system with a lot of backup material, I think really helped. And I pray we're never in this situation again. So, you know, I don't know how useful that is for the future. You may need it once more in your lifetime. Who knows? But I don't, you know, I always think that backup material is important anyway. So it's just a question of having it organized properly so you can find things.
That's the big thing. You can have it all, but if you don't know how to get it, and also how to get it with people, you know, the one thing that I saw is just, you know, if your editors are remote and, you know, your various teams are separated, how do you get up and running and access to things? Because a lot of that wasn't thought of in a proactive way before.
I mean, we're really lucky we have a digital asset management system, but when you're dealing with so much video, you know, if you don't have one, you really need to get one. You know, before I struggled with Box or, you know, half a dozen other, you know, kind of consumer oriented brands. But when you make the leap into a DAM, it makes all the difference in the world. And they're not that expensive. You don't have to build one yourself. No, they're really not.
They're getting really, we're working with one called, we're using Cloudinary and Content Stack right now. And both of them are designed that they're user friendly, where it's not a matter of having to get everything to them. You can actually self-populate and tag. It's really interesting. They use the word liberating. I would say the first word was terrifying, but now we're starting to get a little bit more liberated. But yeah, definitely a DAM and having your content organized. Victoria,
yeah, I would say real quick that the other thing that we've addressed and changed twice also is our photo and video release.
Oh yeah,
because of our B-roll and all the images that we have, and now that we're thinking of all these new ways to use things, you're like, go back to which version of the PDF did they sign, and making sure that you're covering yourself that way too.
Yeah, when that's integrated into a DAM like we finally did with ours, it makes life so much easier, because then when you go to look at the asset, then the release form is attached. You know, you don't have to dig through files trying to find the release forms in the assets. And so, plus you can't even upload anything unless you actually tick the box for the release form. So that has really helped us.
Yeah, you're speaking my pain. Our archives, I mean, literally going through paper releases for TV shows and then photo clearance.
Oh my God.
Nobody 30 years ago thought, well, we may need it for this, this, and this. So every smart business person paid for the need that they had, and now it's finding photographers. And yeah, so I totally agree that CMSs are going to make, you know, our futures a lot easier.
I think what's funny about that, Kim, is that a lot of people will have saved photographs that they actually licensed for a specific purpose from a stock house, and you don't even know that. You think they shot it, and then you go to use it and you get fined.
Yeah.
That's happened to me on a few occasions.
But wait, that's mine. Victoria, is there anything that you have done or adapted to that you think you would take with you in the new normal?
It's really, I mean, honestly, it's just relationships. It's just the strength of the relationships that we've built, both locally in New York City and then around the country, because we've had to be so nimble and spin up crews in areas where, you know, we did predominantly all of our physical production in New York City. That's where our home office is. That's where our studios are. We just have easy access. That wasn't an option. So I think it's just a matter of keeping the relationships that we have and then growing those relationships in areas around the country where we may not have been working. We have 16,000 advisors around North America. We have global offices. So it's leveraging whatever talent we can find. You know, I have staff, I have a project right now that I'm leveraging just employees that are great at photography that want to help us shoot some images of buildings that are empty right now because we need that footage.
Yeah.
So we're just getting really clever, and we're finding that we're finding some really good talent out there.
Well, that's the thing. Martha's gardener, her head gardener now shoots for her, which is a little scary. But that but that brings me to you, Tom. You were saying, you know, that delivery person was now self-shooting and things like that. Is that something you would continue doing now that we
Yeah, I think so.
the floodgates for, you know, you're part of the brand, you're part of the company, you know, share your part of the story?
Yeah, I think so. And there's kind of two parts of it. And one part of it is a little sad actually, because a lot of the independent filmmakers that we had been using, or I had in my sort of Rolodex to use, a lot of those companies didn't make it through COVID. And so I know like Chicago, you know, where we are, has a really vibrant kind of independent film community, but a lot of those companies just didn't make it through it, you know, especially when they had to shut down, they had to be nimble. So kind of that's part of it. And I think, you know, going forward, really baked into my strategy is going to be, when given the option of say engaging an agency or engaging a larger production company versus looking at a small local film company, I'm usually going to defer to the small local film company. But I think that would have been the case probably even before the pandemic. But where it's really kind of broadened our horizons and where we're probably going to stick with it going forward is, we're just going to be doing a lot less travel in general, you know, and especially, you know, with how our team is distributed, South America, all across Europe, a couple of offices in China, you know, to get content from those folks. Maybe pre-pandemic, we would have tried to organize a trip out there, get a crew out there, or do that. But now everything's going to be local, you know, and if you can't do it as a video conference recording, I really want to use that tool that Mark was talking about.
I want to do it too.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm just the amount of time I spend in Premiere, like cutting out little cells and rearranging them, and then the quality just goes down exponentially. Anyway, tangent on that, but it's going to be a lot more local. And what I think is really cool about that is, whereas before, you know, if you defaulted to an expensive trip sending a crew somewhere, so maybe that limited you to 2 projects per year, 3 projects per year. Now you can do project a month, maybe even more, because the lift is so easy, because the financial lift is so easy. And because now I feel like, and this is going to probably be a thing going forward, is you just look at the quality, the video quality that people are now used to and now accustomed to, and it's not studio quality. It's not, this could be a film on the big screen or anything like that. It's people are used to, first off, consuming content on a mobile screen. So, you know, I've talked to a lot of my filmmaker friends and a lot of my producer friends, and they just lament it. And they just go, please don't watch my show on a phone. Don't watch my show on a laptop, watch it on a big screen. But I'm kind of just thinking, like, let's meet people where they are. If you're going to watch our content on a phone, we're going to make it for a phone, and we're going to, you know, not worry about if you zoom in, not worry about what this is going to look like at 1920, but worry about what it's going to look like at 800 by 450 if you're going to go that small. And so I think it opens up a lot of doors for us, and especially, you know, me as on a team that's somewhat budget constrained and somewhat scrappy anyway. We've been able to do more than we probably would have before, because before it would have been this whole discussion of, okay, well, we don't have the budget, so maybe we don't do this. But now it's, well, let's do it. Let's see how it looks. If we're not happy with how it looks, we won't release it. But then, okay, we've only lost, you know, two hours of, you know, or two full days of my work and not a lot of budget work. And that's a much more acceptable loss than sending a crew somewhere and not being able to use that. So I definitely think it opens a lot more doors for us and opens up for a lot more possibilities. And that's been kind of a huge silver lining about this, because a lot of people have learned to be a lot more flexible, a lot more nimble, and
yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think that's the positive side of it. I worry, or I've spoken to colleagues that worry that now that, the suits, shall we call them, see that you can create, a TV show with 2 iPhones and, and run around and be your own art director and, have survived it, that this now may be the new normal in a way that makes it harder. Like I totally get where you're coming from, Tom, and it's liberating in that way where your same dollar can go a lot further and the consumer is enjoying it just as much or accepting it and all of that. But then also, has anybody experienced where you really, to make it work, pushed everything to the limit, and now we're a little nervous that this is going to become what's expected from the money folks?
Yeah. And sorry, I do want to speak to that really quick, just because I don't want to seem like I'm the low quality is good guy either.
Oh, no, yeah.
You can totally tell what, and it's just, it makes it, and in my mind, it makes it even more of a game changer when you have something that's done high quality, done with a crew, done with the correct lighting and the correct sound, and all that. I think it kind of amplifies that a bit more. So I think there's totally a space for that. And I will always pound the table for extra budget to make high quality things as well. So
I just worry about the team of 2 or 3 people after, their 5 other colleagues were laid off. And now, they were glad to have jobs and they saved the day and they did well. But now it's like, okay, well, what's next? What's next? What's next? And nobody's stopping and saying, okay, well, now we're kind of getting out of this. Let's build up again. Has anybody experienced that or have had a concern? Mark, I see you shaking your head.
It's going to take time. I mean, we lost almost half of our staff. So it was either through layoffs or through attrition. And I think it's going to take, just like the economy, I think it's going to take time for the whole thing to come back. I mean, a lot of these agencies that folded, obviously those people want to work again. So they're going to reform in some fashion. And I am wondering whether or not when we all start to produce things at once, if there's actually going to be enough companies to handle all the work.
Yeah.
I mean, I have thought about that. I'm kind of curious as to, because they're all of a sudden, I don't know when it's going to hit, but August, September, while the weather is still good and people want to shoot outside, and it's going to be really interesting. I've never seen anything like this in my whole life. So none of us have, right? So we don't know.
My biggest challenge is the constraint on resources. We're a small team. We're a nimble we're 3 people plus myself. And as Tom was talking, I was just thinking about how I need to interview like 4 more editors because I can't keep up, because the production piece has become so much, we have such access to it, whether it's just simple recordings over Zoom or using tools or even the way that we're filming. I just can't get enough. My post-production schedules are just 3 and 4 projects at a time.
Well, and as somebody said, post-production now kind of takes a little bit more of, I don't want to use the word burden, but challenge of making these various ways we're shooting look better. That's where you can kind of put it was used to be an old thing. Well, they'll fix it in post, but now we're really in a situation where they're stabilizing, they're correcting the look and the saturation at such a larger scale because we're really shooting the basics.
Right. Exactly. It's a larger lift. So, so I there is concern. I'm preparing myself for the end of the year and what that's going to look like because the requests just keep coming in now.
Well, at least for editing though, Victoria, I would think that it would be relatively easy to hire people that are remote, since so many people are still working out of their houses. A lot of editors these days are looking for work. So
the budget piece.
I see. Right.
Why would I pay for it piece?
Right. I see.
And
you did it. Just keep doing it.
That's exactly it. Well, how were you able to do it this whole time? So.
Yep. And the way budgets work too. I mean, we're in the middle of budget season here, and you guys know where it's, if your balance sheet looks a certain way at the end of fiscal 20, it's going to have to look similar in fiscal 21. And it's making that business case of no, this next year is a very different year. Yeah. We're going to have different costs associated, and the budget needs to reflect that. But then that's a difficult conversation for creatives to have with managing and budget, so it's a big argument that needs to be made, and you need to brush up on the persuasive skills for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And, definitely arguments for that. And especially, as you said, with all of us having colleagues that are looking, I do think that there's a huge freelance lift that's about to happen. But I think people that really like to be on staff jobs and in more secure situations are all hoping that what was reduced sometimes comes a little bit, people are looking for those positions to be filled again. And travel, as far as, Tom was very clear on the fact that there's a whole new strategy around travel, still getting all of that amazing content from China and various other places, but not necessarily having to assemble the dream team to send them there. How does everybody else see travel in relationship to crews going or production teams and then meeting?
I apologize to talk over you, but we're talking about keeping things local and sending key members of the production team. So if I'm directing, for example, I'll be on set, but we're hiring local. So we're looking at it more of a hybrid approach at first. Just had my first request to do an interview in person in Detroit. So we'll be traveling to Detroit in December, but not from New York. It's a matter of keeping things small and local for now.
And when you do that, is COVID compliance still a consideration, or has that lifted up? Because we've had situations where it could cost, you're saving money on one end, and then it costs $3,000 just to have somebody police, and rightly so, don't get me wrong, but I'm just wondering how loose it's going to get and how quickly.
This month, we've stopped hiring compliance officers. We had compliance officers on set up until this month, and there's some states that have been very loose, and they're like, you're fine if we don't have, but we were testing, having officers on set, but it seems to be changing. So I haven't hired a compliance officer, and I haven't in like 2 months, and even the testing has come down. Some places require it. It really is on a case by case basis, depending on where we're going.
Only those compliance officers could like magically morph into editors overnight.
That would really help me. That would be like the best case scenario. How do I make that happen?
Yeah. Go into this phone booth and come back out and edit.
It's so true. Some of those COVID, we had people apply, arrive on set as if this had been their jobs their whole life. Talk about quickly being adaptable and finding an opportunity. Just get 8,000 long Q-tips and go. It's pretty crazy. So maybe they can morph into editors because we need them. Anything else any predictions for the future now that we've kind of seen our key morning show hosts in their pajamas and in their kitchens, and people are used to that little glitch of black, or a camera person that sneezes because they really are a 14-year-old kid, and all these other things that have happened. Does anybody do we feel that there's going to be an appreciation for that moving forward, or do we feel that people are going to want to see something really crisp and clean and beautiful again? And I guess when I mean people, I mean clients, our bosses, as well as the consumer. What do you think the expectation is going to be?
I think our bosses are going to want to see the crisp and clean again. I think they miss it, but I don't think that our audiences, I think what really resonates with our audience is the truth, like the information, the way we're delivering it in the right places. I think that's what makes the difference. But my prediction would be is that we go back to some degree doing what we were doing, if I can get the budgets for it.
Yeah. What do you think, Michelle?
I think there's two themes. I call one of them baking. Obviously, baking was a huge theme over the last 14 months. But for us here at LLS, that has meant baking together media, content distribution, and some creative and editing help with some of the partnerships that you broker. So in other words, like instead of spending, God forbid, 6K or even high 5K on the production of a video, and then you have to figure out what eyeballs you want to see that video, and then you have to analyze like the audience and then retarget them and like if you find a partner that can do all of that, and sometimes it does come down to a simple like insertion order, like let's do this media run, but also you are going to make these videos. It's your platform, it's your audience. Like you tell me what will resonate with those viewers related to my storytelling or my patient POV. And then the other theme is that, there's taking 2 deep breaths and letting go a little bit of that psychological safety net of, if it's my video, I have to do everything. You know, like, so delegating, like, I don't have to go to Tahoe to shoot America's Most Beautiful Bike Ride. There's already going to be so much content coming out of it. Like, we just need a way to capture it all. And then somebody needs to oversee the production of the storytelling and the editing. But it doesn't have to be the same person doing every single step of the project.
That's very.
If you need someone to go to Tahoe to look at America's Most Beautiful Bike
That was
Ride.
the objective, to get volunteers to go to Tahoe.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. It was like, I was saying to myself, but wasn't that why we all got into this, for those fun moments of, you know, we could be accountants, and I'm sure it's lovely sitting behind that desk, but I think part of the adventure of everything we've done, no offense to Morgan Stanley, but I think, that, you know, the part of what we've enjoyed, all of us, is being in the moment and being in those places. So hopefully we get a little.
Definitely. But along Tom's, like, when I learned that, like, you know, Honolulu was going to get its first cancer treatment center so that people out on the islands didn't have to come to the mainland for treatment. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
There's definitely some stuff that people will still hand raise for to get that in-person experience for the content.
And do you guys think agencies, you know, all I hear about is that a lot of companies are taking in internal, smaller agencies as opposed to the larger agencies outside. Do you guys work with a lot of agencies? Do you see that continuing? Is that going to be where, you know, some of those extra monies are now going to just be reallocated to actually hard costs, and any kind of themes that you see might open up in reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak from the WBA perspective. Is we have our agency of record is WPP, family of agencies, and they're awesome. And we've actually, you know, beefed up our agency resources. And I'm just speaking to my team particularly. You know, we're a team of 3 FTEs, but we have 3 full-time agency support folks that are basically like live-in agency people. We have a writer, we have a project manager, and we have a graphic designer. And they've been awesome, just to have them there. And they're with H&K, and it's my first time working that closely with an agency to deliver stuff like this, and it's been really great. And it's a good relationship, and I really like working with them. And I think that's kind of been Walgreens' way of doing things. Not to sound like a broken record, but I, of course, prefer reaching out to either freelancers or independent filmmakers to do those specific things, to do you know, specific things that I think a filmmaker would be better at. But in terms of like overall project management, in terms of kind of everyday support, because obviously I can't hire an independent film company to just be a semi FTE on my team all the time and work on stuff like that with us. So I think in the position correctly and given the right type of thing to do, I think agency support is a godsend. But I think there's just, you know, it's just so case by case, it's project by project. And it's, you know, there's certain things that I'm going to want a smaller, independent, more authentic eye on, I think.
Anybody else? Mark, Victoria?
I would agree. That's how we do things at Morgan Stanley. It's really on a case by case basis. Yeah, looking at the project and the scope of work and the talent needed to execute on the idea. So it, you know, internally is to become the internal agency is what the future state of our team is really working towards, because they want to keep as much internal as possible. So we do have an agency of record. We do work with agencies on our larger brand campaigns. They're fantastic, but we really function as the internal resource between video, design, digital presentations. We're really working on building out that larger team.
Wow, yeah, definitely seems to be where everybody's going in that respect. So how do you think that's going to affect the future of the agencies, the larger agencies? What are they going to have to do to compete with that?
Have less layers. I mean, the account management piece is always a deterrent, having, you know, multiple layers of people in the mix. I mean, we work direct with our business units and we get a lot done. We need to because of the timing of our markets. So having meetings for the sake of meetings and showcasing work internally, I mean, those things just don't work on our timeframes. So our producers really function as not only the creative leads, but also as the project management
Project
lead.
managers, yeah.
So they're doing both, and they wear both
Mine
hats.
too. Anybody else on that?
I couldn't agree more with Victoria on that. And I think just a huge part of it is the human connection and the human part of it. And so it's, versus having those 8 different layers of folks that you go through, if you're just talking directly with, say, the motion graphics person, if you're talking directly with the editor, if you're talking, agency provided or not, cutting out that middleman and having that personal one-on-one connection. Personally, to your first question, I think agencies will be fine. I think agencies are probably actually doing a lot more business than they had been doing before, just because of the, I'm not speaking from our specific situation, but I think in general, the agency model, if you're a worker, if you're an editor or a creative, and you want that stable job, it's almost like an agency is more of a place to go, because if you're pulled off one project, you're still working for the agency, and you can get put on another project for a different company. So there's a little bit more stability there in a way, and I think it's good that agencies exist for that reason as well. But I think they'll be fine, honestly.
We're not worried about them. Any last thoughts? Mark, do you want to go first? Anything to sum up what we've talked about, or observations, or?
I wonder where measurement is going in the next year as more and more video gets made and people have so many choices of what to watch. And I have no idea, but I think that's going to be a very interesting area to watch.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one metric that I know a lot of companies use is like how many more people come to your website. If the website is now the new front door, which we've all tested that out for the last 13 months. I have like a weird, interesting, almost like a negative cut version of that, because I think about if there's 1.5 million people in this country that have blood cancer, do I want 10 million uniques to my site in one day? That means like a ton of people just got diagnosed with cancer. So it's almost like you're working towards a time and place in the next generation where there is no more blood cancer. So our uniques to our website are 0. So so what else, like how do we measure enhancing the consumer journey that might actually not involve our own website? Like, how do you get it so that people are experiencing your brand or products I'm making this up, in Candy Crush, or on your Soul Cycle, in your Soul Cycle class, or for my kids on Twitch, or in Fortnite? Like, it's, you still have around the dinner table conversation. We've all had to have dinner with our families every night for the last 14 months. So now we know what those dinner table conversations are like. And maybe none of those 4 impressions came to your website, but they all engaged with your brand or your product. So how do we measure that?
I think something that really resonated to me about what you just said, Michelle, too, is we have a big measurement challenge in front of us at Walgreens, because for the past 14 months, we've had this built-in SEO win where if you're going to go search Walgreens COVID test, if we write the right kind of article with the right kind of headline, we're guaranteed, millions of impressions just based off organic search. And so and it feels weird to say this, so I always have to couch it like it is such a good thing that this is ending. It's an amazing thing that's ending, but it's presenting us with a little bit of a challenge, because once COVID goes away, we've lost 14 months worth of, really beefed up and really inflated metrics, and really beefed up and really inflated views. And so what these conversations are ongoing with us is what do we do with that? What lessons do we learn? And how do we go forward? Because we need to get that kind of, SEO optimization and energy for our retail side, for vitamins, for different things that, you're not necessarily going to have 60+% of the country Googling every day. And how do you
keep them? How do you keep them now that you had them? Like yeah,
that's our big challenge. Is hopefully we've demonstrated enough of our kind of brand value and expertise in that we are even more trusted as a healthcare source of information. But when all that search goes away, what are we going to do?
That's an interesting one. Very interesting. Well, this I think was great and insightful. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for each spending time today in the middle of your day, because I know nothing is more exciting than one more Zoom.
Well, thanks for hosting.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, and we're going to have 2 more. The next one is on June 16th at 2 p.m. And that's going to be digital and e-com and everything has taken over. You know, it went on steroids. We knew it was coming, it was here, but boy, did it catapult forward. So we're going to be talking about what that looks like. I hand it back over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Kim, and thanks everybody for joining this. And you know, I'll post this recording on our Vimeo channel. If you haven't found that library, it's in our newsletter, but I'll share it with everybody so you can go back to some of these other previous roundtables we've done in the past, and you'll find this one there as well. All right, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. A lot of fun.
Bye.